evening and welcome to Meticulous Moments. My name is Juanita Kapp. You can reach me at meticulousmacarons@gmail.com or find me on LinkedIn. Since the COVID-19 pandemic hit the globe, I've had the wonderful privilege to meet a wide array of fantastic individuals. These individuals have truly touched my life in so many positive ways. Amongst this group of people, there are authors, public speakers, life coaches, poets, leaders, and visionaries. They are the unsung heroes of our time. Therefore, I decided to start the Meticulous Moments movement out of a sense of my gratitude. It is my way of giving back to the community. Let us share and reshare their stories in an effort to build a better society. This evening we have the amazing privilege of spending time with the wonderful Desmond Walker, such a good friend of mine, beautiful soul, amazing spirit, heart of gold, a servant leader, and the following also applies to Desmond. He's an executive officer, DDG 96, surface nuclear officer, a mentor, and a non-profit leader. But he's also an aspiring entrepreneur. This was a very, very interesting interview. You have to see the full interview to discover all the golden nuggets that Desmond Walker has shared with us. Thank you so much, Desmond. When you came back from deployment, the first thing you did was contact me to schedule our interview. Thank you so much for being so authentic, for being such a precious leader with integrity. I really look up to you, and I can't wait to see what the future holds. Looking forward to collaborating with you again in future. Be blessed, my brother.
Good day, Meticulous Moments audience. Thank you so much for joining us for yet another enlivening session here at the Meticulous Moments podcast, where we facilitate community upliftment through leadership development. And today we have a very, very special guest. We have the privilege of spending time with the amazing Desmond Walker. Good day, Desmond. How are you?
Good day, Jay. I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing so well. My goodness, I've been looking forward to your interview for months. I mean, we met on LinkedIn. I know you were deployed at that time. I'll let you share that with the audience. And then you said, yes, you're ready. But when you come back, and we've been talking over the last few months, so I feel like I've known you for much longer. But for the audience that haven't met you before, would you like to just introduce yourself, please?
Sure thing. So I'm Commander Desmond Walker from the United States, in the United States Navy, originally from Hollandale, Mississippi. And even me go ahead and first say, anything I say is my own comments, negotiated with the Department of Defense or United States Navy. Oh, so get that out the way. And then, and so, yeah, I've been in the Navy about 26 years. I'm originally from Hollandale, Mississippi. Been married 25 years. Have 3 beautiful children. And I've just tried to be the best version of myself every single day.
My goodness, Desmond. I mean, when we started talking, you were deployed all the way out there in the Mediterranean Sea, I believe. And, it was just amazing to see here in South Africa, and I'm talking to someone in the Navy right in the middle of the Mediterranean Sea.
Yes. Our ship was a part of the Harry S. Truman Carrier Strike Group, and in support of theater security cooperation and NATO operations in what we would call the 6th Fleet area of operations, and just on a standard deployment. And I check LinkedIn every once in a while when I have some downtime where I want to take a break from the grind of work, and we cross paths there.
Well, I'm
great, and it was.
Yeah, I'm certainly delighted.
I was going to say it was interesting. It was interesting how we connected, and you kind of just reached out like, "Hey, I would love to interview you." And then I went back and forth, and then I had to pause because, we were, I'm in the military, and then I was, hey, that schedule. Then we actually got extended twice. And so that was part of the reason why I had to just say, hey, I'll let you know when we can connect, because, the tensions are high in that area of the world. And, we were on watch, and so I had to make sure I was focused on the mission at hand. And now I'm back home, a little downtime. And so now's a great time to reflect on the leadership challenges I had there and just whatever we want to talk about today.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. I always commend people that are committed. I commend people that have family values that really stick to it. I mean, you've been married 25 years and you go out and you serve your country and you come back and you also, you work out there, because this is what the Meticulous Moments is. It's a community upliftment project. So I want to say thank you from myself and my audience for you making the time and, for just hanging in there. And although there were 2 extensions, it was definitely worth the wait. I'm looking forward to this interview.
Awesome. Likewise.
Wonderful. Tell me, now you are residing in the States. Where did you grow up? I've never traveled to the States before. I'm actually going to go to New Jersey in January. So whereabouts are you from and where did you grow up? Did you move again when you went to the Navy, or how did that work?
Yeah, so I'm originally from the state of Mississippi. It's in the South region of the United States, and actually enlisted into the military right after graduation. I took like 2 months off and then went straight to the military. I could have went to college, but the high school I went to, the Mississippi School for Mathematics and Science, was like a school. It was actually a high school on a college campus where it was, you took a lot of advanced placement classes, all kind of preparation for college. And I just didn't feel like doing more school. I just wanted to just get out of Mississippi, just go do something different, and ended up joining the military and ended up falling in love with it. And I love what I do. Actually, that's where I met my wife. We were in the same class, actually.
Wow.
And so thank you, Navy, for that one. and then things just kind of blossomed from there. In my 26 years of service, I've lived all over the country. Let me see, Florida, Northern Virginia, and I'm now here in Southern Virginia. I've lived in California as well. And then in my time, I've served on now 6 different ships, and I've been to so many countries that I stopped counting. I just whenever we go somewhere, I just try to try to find something new about the culture that I'm experiencing in that moment.
That's a wonderful testimony. And I mean, to have served on 6 different ships, I'm sure that was a wonderful experience to develop your leadership during all of those years. It is commendable. And I want to ask you the next question. I want to ask you, what is your role? How has that role been shaped over the years in the Navy?
Okay, so so I kind of go big first. So I enlisted first. So I had my rate or my trade that's commonly used as an electronics technician, and I was specifically focused on radars. And as I performed my duties and learned more about what it meant to be a frontline supervisor, to get maintenance done, how to operate your equipment, how to lead small teams, 9 people or less. I started to look at the leaders that I had and started to realize that, hey, I could do what they're doing as well. And with support from my wife, I decided to become a commissioned officer as well. And so it's like I've had just every time you kind of, as you move up the ladder, your scope and scale of duties and responsibilities continues to expand. And so over the years, I've tried to maintain that a level of professionalism where you stay curious and you never stop learning. And that's been fortunate. I've been fortunate in that as I try to have my performance level to keep up with that level of knowledge increase and improvement, which has served me well so far. And so it's worked for the last 26 years. So I guess I'll keep doing it.
I love the fact that you and your wife both are in the Navy. I love that support system that you have for each other. You know, all the years that you've been in the Navy has certainly shaped both of you. And you were saying, you know, you continually want to scale up. You want to learn new leadership skills. And that is really the life of a leader. I always tell people, you know, when you're a leader in society, whichever area you work in, you've really committed to a life of personal and professional development continuously, because what we learn today we apply, but when we see again in the next month or two, you know, there's new knowledge available, and we have to make sure we stay on top of that. So thank you so much for sharing that with us. Now, I typed a few questions here, and I read on your profile on LinkedIn that you are functioning as an executive officer, a DDG 96, which I'm not sure what that is. You'll teach me. A surface nuclear officer in the Navy, but more than that, you are also a mentor, a non-profit leader, and an aspiring entrepreneur. That is a wonderful portfolio. Please tell us more.
Yes, ma'am. And so my specific duties now in the military, United States Navy, is the executive officer on USS Bainbridge. It's a guided missile destroyer. The DDG-96 is the 6 is the hull number. The class of the platform is DDG-51, the Arleigh Burke class, and I'm on a Flight 2 Alpha variant, which allows us to have what we would call an organic helicopter detachment on board. Whereas the earlier flights, they have the capability to work with helicopters, but the helicopters and that detachment don't have space to stay for a long duration. And so as executive officer, I am I'm second in command. And my overall duties revolve around what we would call executing the battle rhythm of the ship, the internal day-to-day planning and execution of the ship's crew. So I ensure that the things that we want to get accomplished day to day are planned out appropriately, so that the crew has an opportunity to plan their days, look at their requirements completed, and we move along day to day and still accomplishing all the missions that we need to accomplish based on the priorities that we set and that are set by our chain of command.
Very, very interesting. I'm learning as we go along, and I'm guessing that is, you have to be very, very disciplined and organized to make sure that ship runs smoothly. I mean, how many hands do you have on deck at a time? That must be hundreds of people.
Yes, and so our crew size ranges between 270 and 320, depending on where we're at and what we would call which phase we're in. And then so we have our framework. We have our department heads, division officers, and then our senior enlisted leaders have their specific roles and functions that we utilize to define who has what responsibilities, accountabilities, and things of that nature. And so I managed all of that for the captain of the ship.
My goodness. That is quite the delegation skills.
Oh, yes. And one of the most difficult parts is knowing when to delegate it, when I have to take action myself.
Yes, I can imagine, because some of it you do yourself and some of it you will give over to other, is it sailors? Do we refer to the individuals as sailors?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so the sailors, you've certainly got strong leadership skills, because I know you have a very important role that you fulfill, and they wouldn't just entrust that to anyone. So tell me more about your nonprofit leader, and tell me about your entrepreneurship, because I'm also an entrepreneur, and I want to learn more and see how I can support you.
Okay, awesome. So on the nonprofit side, I have been a board member of the S. DeLois Mays Foundation Scholarship. Esther Lois May Scholarship Foundation. It started back in 2013. I think I became a board member 2016, 2017, something like that. And the scholarship is based around our president's sister, our president, Ebony, I'm drawing a blank on the name. I always used to call her Ebony. But our president, Ebony, her sister died in a car accident in 2002. And so this Ebony Wright is her name. Miss Ebony Wright. Her sister had a passion for education and decided to stand up this scholarship foundation in her honor. And so, we provide 2 scholarships to students from Suffolk, Virginia. And like I said, that's where I live now, and that are going to seek higher education. We have a general scholarship and then a scholarship focused on healthcare, and we celebrate those winners every year on Martin Luther King's recognized birth celebration on January 16th. So we have our 9th annual banquet next January 16th.
Fantastic. My goodness, that is very, very interesting. An entrepreneur, I mean, what is it that is your passion in life? Do you have a business? Are you aspiring to start a business, a movement?
Right. So, being in the Navy 26 years, this career is going to end at some point. And so a few years ago, just started thinking about what I wanted to do after the military. And so I established a LLC. It's called DDBMC, which is the first initials of everyone in my family. Myself, Desmond, my wife, Delisha, my oldest daughter, Bria, then my twins, boy and girl, Malia and Christopher. So DDBMC. And so I've established it, still trying to figure out what I want to do. But in the interim, we decided to make our first minority stake investment into a company called Simple Brew Coffee. Simplebrew.online. The company is an online coffee retailer, and they do pop-ups in the local area as well, here in the Hampton Roads area of Virginia. And I know the owners. I've known the owners for over 20 years. And when he decided to start a business, I was like, I have to invest in this. Not sure where it's going to go, but I want to help him get started. And so that was officially our first investment. And so right now, I guess you say one part of my business is venture capitalism, I guess. So still just trying to figure out what it's going to mean after the Navy. I have some ideas on some things. And so, but being executive officer of a ship, that definitely takes up a lot of my time. And so right now I'm still like I said, continuing to learn. I'm still in the learning phase of what it means to be an entrepreneur, hence the aspiring.
I love the way that you think, because you realize, at some time, a point in time, your service will be finished and you're already making a way for yourself and your family for when that happens. And I love the fact that you used your names, as a family unit to put that together. Thank you for sharing that with us. That is very, very unique. I really think that is it's going to set the stage for you for the rest of your life. And, you're working on it already. So any way that we can elevate you or support you from the Meticulous Moments audience, we will definitely do so. Thank you for sharing that with us. We'll also, if you have any links or any, contact details available, we'll put it on the post.
Absolutely.
For people to be able to follow you and support you in your journey.
Thank you. Absolutely.
Thank you, Desmond. Now let's dive into the next question. As a mentor, have you had leaders that lose hope along their leadership journey? And how do you inspire and motivate them to keep going? Because one thing that I've seen, I've been a pastor for 15 years, and what I've seen in my years in the ministry is often people, they face trials and tribulations, they face challenges, sometimes they fail. And they feel that they are the failure. Instead of looking at the situation, in a logical manner, they really internalize. And it's very difficult as a leader and as a mentor to inspire and motivate. So I know you've got about 280, 320 people that you manage. How do you motivate them if they face difficulties?
That's a great question. So I would caveat your question with this kind of thought process. I've learned over the years that leadership is a very broad brush when it comes to organizations of different sizes, scale, scope, requirements, things of that nature. And so I've learned that the leadership piece, I'll say it this way. Sometimes some people need you to be a coach. Sometimes they need you to be a mentor. Sometimes they need you to be an advisor. Sometimes they need you to be a listener. Sometimes they need you to be a motivator. And all of those things get boiled down to just leadership. And so I reported to my ship as executive officer with that in mind, is be prepared to be the leader that crew needs, not the leader that I want to be. And I found that to be very useful because my training pipeline, we have about a 9-month training pipeline for executive officers. And they gave me a lot of time to really think about the ship and the crew and what their schedule was like and what they were going through. And by the time I reported, which was during the first month of the deployment, I knew that they had some significant losses on the ship. And so I wanted to come in and be mindful, be empathetic of what the crew had endured in the previous year, but still be able to come in with the level of discipline, focus, and appreciation that we can't change our past and we have things that are ahead. So how do I support the captain in executing the mission at hand while appreciating the past, but still continuing to push us forward? And the deployment with the 2 extensions gave us a chance to really do that and gel as a team in the wake of that arduous time that they had over the last 2 years prior to my arrival. And so now we are in a different phase where, some of the people have transferred off that were directly involved in those issues. And so it's an opportunity to, as time heals all wounds, mindset, how do we train people to what right looks like? How do we build in the things for physical, mental, emotional, spiritual readiness? How do we build that into how we do business so that we, instead of having these huge ramps up and then ramping down, or these significant drop offs, how do we try to maintain some high level performance, even if you dip off, a little bit in the recovery, but you come back up, you try to maintain a higher level of performance overall. And so we try to do things in that manner with the captain leading the way, and then myself as basically his executive officer, his officer, principal assistant. We have a senior enlisted leader we call a command master chief who helps bring the enlisted sailor perspective to whatever we're trying to accomplish as what we would call a command triad.
I've never ever heard of anything like that before, and I think it's amazing. The way that you approach it, and you said something very, very significant that is so, so powerful. You said sometimes they need a coach, sometimes they need a mentor, and that is a skill that you've developed in the Navy, knowing when to present them with what. So, the approach that you take is so dynamic that you serve them in a servant leadership style with what they need. And you mentioned you don't give them what you feel or experience they need in leadership. You really go and you assess what is needed for their best outcome, for their benefit. And to me, that is something phenomenal, because you don't find that in every leadership arena. And even the fact how you use the triad to make sure there's those three perspectives, because it's really all about the people on the ship. It's all about the people in the team. So that is very interesting. I learned something very powerful today, and it speaks to me on a personal level. I'm going to, take that approach and
Awesome.
take that view. Thank you. Now, life is difficult. There's trials and tribulations. We face tedious situations. Sometimes we don't even know how to see the light at the end of the tunnel. And I want to ask you, if you had to give a definition or an example of what not giving up looks like, in your book, what does not giving up look like?
Oh, that's a great question. I would say, I have this thing I do. I've been doing it for a few years now. About pretty much anything I post on social media, I end it with hashtag keep grinding. And it's kind of been a mindset for me. I mean, it originally started. I had to have neck surgery in 2015, and my naval career was in jeopardy at that point. And so, and then around that same time, I was going to be stationed as a geographical bachelor. My family stayed in Florida, and I reported to San Diego, California for my next tour, and which is going to be 24 months. And in that recovery, I tried to come up with something to keep me motivated in those moments when I didn't feel motivated. I wanted to stay committed to something. And so the keep grinding thing then just became a habit where it's like, okay, what does keep grinding mean to me? It's like, okay, to clarify, it doesn't mean just go hard every single day. No, it means be deliberate about what you're doing, and don't waste time. Sometimes it's good to have white space in your calendar, right? And to plan to do nothing, right? Yeah. And so I've struggled with that as well over the years. But I try to show that it's okay to take care of yourself. It's okay to take that extra class. It's okay to go to the gym. It's okay to eat that cheeseburger and French fries with a large drink. It's okay to do all those things, because it goes back to that being able to perform at a high level at work and at home.
Yes.
Do you take the time to say, okay, I'm not going to plan something work related today because I want to be available to the family? Even if the family doesn't want to do anything, do you? And I've had to learn that too. It's like, if the family doesn't want to do something, then don't put something in that moment that now takes you away from the family. Be ready to be there, be in the moment with the family. And so that's it. Just keep grinding. That's my mindset.
I think that's phenomenal, because keep grinding you gave it a fresh perspective. Because if if I think keep grinding from my side, that would mean go hard or go home, every day. But you bring a fresh view to it, saying that keep grinding, but also do self-care, make time for family, have those little bit of white in your calendar, enjoy that meal that you want to enjoy. And that's really life. Not giving up, to me, is you and I in this room this evening. Because not giving up means we just kept on going. Even if we had to, I always use the illustration of running. If you have to cross country, I love doing cross country. And at some point, the people that run with you, you can see they start getting tired. And I always tell them, you are allowed to run slower. You can walk, you can stand, but don't you dare sit down, because that momentum, to build up that momentum again is just so hard. So when you were saying keep grinding, I actually saw when we do cross country running, just go on, just keep that momentum. Even if you have to go a little bit slower, just don't stop and stagnate. So I absolutely love that. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. Thank you. Leadership quotes. We all have a favorite leadership quote. What is your favorite leadership quote? Even if you have more than one or just one, I have also a few.
Yes, ma'am. And so that has evolved for me over the years as well. As I'm 44 years old now. Like I say, never stop learning. And so I say I've anchored on the last few years because I knew I was coming into the opportunity to command. I wanted to come up with something that allows me to not lose myself in like, I'm not just the Navy, I'm also a father, I'm a husband, things like that. And so the first quote that comes to mind is and it comes from it's a play on words in from a document that we get from the Chief of Naval Operations, the head of the United States Navy, called the Charge of Command, and it has been revised over the years. But my takeaway from it is work hard to build trust and confidence. That's the quote, and the initial connotation is tied to being in command, but it's with any relationship. Work hard to build trust and confidence. That's no different than what you and I have here. I worked hard to build trust and confidence by saying, okay, she reached out to me. I responded, right? And then, okay, so what I do, we looked at some of your other videos.
Yes.
And okay, what is she talking about? This, that, and the other. And then came back later and said, hey, yes, I would love to talk to you. And now I'm building trust with you. I'm building confidence with you by continuing to engage. And then I have to come back again and say, hey, I can't do this or that because this and that. Let's target November. And then you said, okay. And then you trust me and you have confidence in me that I will follow with that. And then, a few months go by, I reach out, hey, can we still do this? Are you still interested? Right. And so working hard to build trust and confidence, it's across the board.
I absolutely love that quote. I've asked this question a few times and I've never ever had this answer. It's unique and it's so integral to leadership, especially when you work with teams. If you don't have that trust that you're talking about or that confidence, how will you ever work together and reach your goal? That is a phenomenally powerful quote. Trust, work hard to get trust and confidence. And you are correct. Conversing, going over it for the last few months, that has built a relationship of trust and confidence to say, we are going to put this together and we are going to put it out there, and we trust and we are confident that the right people will hear this session and it will speak to them on so many levels. That's a phenomenal answer. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
I put in a beautiful question here. I put in a fun question because I love to also, think about what people love in their personal capacity. And I wanted to ask you, if you could spend a day, if you could, make that white part in your calendar for a whole day with any famous leader, who would it be and why?
This is tough. There's so many people to choose from, and I've actually struggled with this one. But it's like any time period, right? They don't have to be alive, do they?
Yeah, they don't have to be alive today.
Yeah. So I would say, I'm definitely drawn to people that are able to stand firm in the midst of adversity.
Wow.
kind of the existing in the eye of the storm.
Yeah.
And so I'm definitely drawn to people like that, because there's so many things to learn from the actions that they took, the decisions that they made, and the results of those decisions. And so a name that came to mind was Frederick Douglass, because he was born a slave, eventually freed. He lived during our Civil War, and the confidence and the bold that he showed as an abolitionist, it's just something to be in awe of. And so I've always appreciated. Actually, I have a book, his biography on my bookshelf here that I pull out from time to time to read just different excerpts. It's a very thick book, but that's who I want to sit down for a day with, to figure out how do you get to be that confident and that bold, and fearless, and unafraid of the consequences, because you know what you're doing is right. And so, because that challenge is like that in the military. It's we have a structure, but it's how do you stand firm in the midst of adversity? I will make a shameless plug. Now that I'm thinking about it, I wrote an article a few years ago called "The Burden of a Black Naval Officer." And it was shortly after we had the murder of George Floyd over here in America. And I actually wrote that article just out of, process the Black man and a naval officer, because when I take the uniform off, Black man on, there's right and everything. And so how do you deal with that dichotomy in our social construct in the 21st century? And so when I wrote that article, I was sharing, and the response I received from was so overwhelming. And and so in some ways, Frederick Douglass and the way he stood firm was kind of a tip of the hat to what he had to do. And I definitely compare myself to the level of impact that Frederick Douglass had, but it was that's some inspiration for sure, that where that article still resonates with some people today. And it's been shared with me that document has been very influential with senior officers, people in the military and out of the military. So I do take some honor and pride in knowing that I added to that voice of standing firm in the midst of different adversities.
That's amazing. I've never heard of Frederick Douglass before, but I'm definitely going to look him up. And I was thinking, as you were, speaking about him and really what he stood for, having been a slave, that courage it must have taken to do what he had done. And I would love for you to give me the link to your article so that we can make that available on the post, that people can go and read. I myself would love to read your article. And, I had a conference
Absolutely.
Yes, please. I had a conference last weekend, and there was a train of thought that came through the conference, and people really started, the speakers were really making themselves vulnerable. They really came out with how they'd been abused when they were young, and there were some of the leaders that were discriminated against because of their race, and they were, physically abused. And I really said in that conference, it's so beautiful to see the power in vulnerability, to take that courage and to
Absolutely.
bring that to the fore and to bring these things to the world and speak about them. We can't brush over them or sugarcoat everything. We have to say it like it is. So I love the fact that you wrote that article, and I'm so happy that Frederick Douglass, existed and that he did what he did. And I think that's a phenomenal choice of someone to spend the day with. My goodness, imagine the conversations that you would have with him. That would just be amazing.
I would just listen as long as I wanted to talk.
I love it. Absolutely. Now, from my side, I've discerned that you have a servant leader's heart, but there are different leadership styles. And, working with 280 to 320 individual sailors every day, that takes a lot of strong leadership skills. So I wanted to ask you, if you had to coin a term to your leadership style, what type of style do you work with them? And when you work with your superiors, does it differ? If you work with your superiors, do you have a different leadership style than when you work with the sailors, or do they stay the same? Because I'm still learning about the Navy.
Yes. I think that there's always a mode of service or being a servant tied to it. And, servant not in a, derogatory
Yes.
sense, more in a service.
Yeah.
As opposed, right. Yes, exactly. And so I found that I think I do it up and down.
Okay.
And I could, because I've learned that, and I guess I've categorized, if you read into my LinkedIn profile, I describe myself as having chameleon-like leadership. So that's probably what I would coin it as, because I want to be positioned to support whoever it is, because I learned this from a former leader, Lieutenant Commander Ron Ross. He told me, I reached out to him when I was going to go and fill a similar similar job that he had when I worked for him. And I asked him for advice. And he said to serve the office of the commanding officer and the executive officer, not the person, because man will fail you. But if you work to make the office successful, you'll never mess up. You'll never go wrong. And so that's really where I'm at. For me, it's whether I'm working for the Chief of Naval Operations, which I did as a special assistant to him, a 4-star admiral, or if it's my most junior sailor on the ship, it's what else can I do to make them successful? And I have found that because I take that mentality, I'm rarely disappointed anymore, because it just is what it is. And my recovery time is actually faster. It's like, okay, well, let's move on to the next thing. Can't do anything about that. So let's move on to the next things, because I'm trying to keep the different roles moving forward, and whatever my function is to that role moving forward, that's what I try to do, which I've also tied into being more deliberate in my leadership style. Another mentor, I'm going to name drop, Vice Admiral Kilby. I had a mentoring session with him one time, and he was the one that kind of taught me about roles and functions, which dovetailed well into what Ron Ross taught me about serving the office and not the person. So it's like looking at what we have required to do. Don't focus on if I'm supposed to have 10 people, but I have 7 to do these 20 things. I really have 25 roles with 75 functions. Which one of those 7 people is going to have the role I need? And now I can more accurately give guidance, mentorship, coaching, advocacy, advice, whatever that leadership trait is, I can give it to that role. And now the team ends up being more effective because If they're there, I'm assuming that they're ready to go. And so now it's let's execute.
That's a very, very interesting way of approaching it. And I'm guessing that, with all the people that you work, you also have a very solid knowledge about the personalities and how to approach different personalities. So it's culminating to, you use the same. You use the same leadership style to the superiors as you do to the sailors. And you really, we talked about you approaching a task, what would be the best beneficial approach for them. So the leadership training goes on. You're a servant leader in the way that you give to others, but you can swap and change should the need be. And I love the fact that you brought up, and this is the good stuff that we get to. Individuals will always disappoint. So have that focus that you said, that you are working for the organization and you are completing your task for the organization. And that's a very noble thing to do, because I love it that you take the focus off certain people and you put it on a whole, because I think that also helps you to focus on your vision and your mission and to not get distracted with all the little things that happen in between. So that's a very good answer. Thank you for breaking that open for us. It's going to speak to someone in the audience that's maybe facing a situation where they need to make choices or they need to adapt their leadership style, and this is going to assist them greatly. Now, my next question to you is...
Absolutely. Can I ask something to that?
Yeah, I would love that.
So... on a deeper level, because I like the way you said how you brought it back to the organization, and that's what I found to be a significant challenge over the years. Is we take our frustrations with the organization and then project those into the things we have to do. And it ends up being counterproductive, because now it's, well, I don't want to do this because the organization did this to me. And me, that's a false equivalency, because the organization is just the organization. Now, the methodology or the methods that you want to use to try to hold your organization accountable is there, but it's try to work on what is the process to hold the organization accountable so that you can get past whatever that is and then recommit to the organization. Because I know for myself, if I fell off the earth today, I'm replaceable. So I'm not, I'm understanding that. But if I just assume the leadership role of, okay, I need to support the organization, that then becomes a part of my narrative, that becomes a part of how I talk to my team. And so again, going back to those roles and functions, now as a leader, I owe it to them to tell them the why. You have this function, here's why. And usually if you give the why, even if they don't fully buy into the organization, because they want to support you, they still may perform. And that's what you want to get to at the end of the day when it comes to building teams, is how do you find out what each individual needs, meet that need, and then move forward?
That is a wonderful perspective to have. It's so true. I found, I've been working in the ministry for 15 years, but I've also been in corporate. I always made sure that I stayed on top of what is happening in corporate as well, because like you, I know my time in the ministry will be up at some point, and then I have to be versed in corporate structures, and I have to also know, I'm also an entrepreneur like you. I also have to build then from there up. So I always saw, when I did leadership training in the corporate world, when I did discipling in the church, the moment that people know why they do something and what the end result is supposed to look like, and they feel valued, the moment that why is brought to the fore, that's the moment that you get the best out of them. And with that, I mean it in a good manner. They then want to be involved. They bring their best skills, their knowledge. They start making plans and think in innovative ways. So thank you so much for adding that. That is a very, very powerful point that you've made.
Thank you.
Good.
Absolutely.
Next question. What is the best display of leadership that you've ever seen?
The best I've ever seen, man. The excuse me. Okay, yeah. Here's a good one. So, because I'm an executive officer now, and it's actually a very timely memory. I didn't realize this until just now. When I was a first tour division officer, my executive officer, he was very meticulous about how he did things, and his name was Rick Snyder. He's a retired 3-star admiral now. And when he was our XO, he was a captain then. He was just very detailed and very meticulous about how he wanted things done and run the ship. And as division officer, there's a gap in there. And so, I saw what I saw, but I didn't really get to see him in action until he fleeted up as our commanding officer of the ship. And the way he was just so even keel every single day, he never got too high, never got too low. It was something to watch, and I've been trying to emulate that. If you ask the crew, probably not too well, but I have that in the back of my mind in my leadership notes and things like that, to always work to not be too high, not to be too low. Be ready to receive bad news, because that's, if people are bringing. There's a leadership quote. I don't remember the leadership quote I just thought about. If people stop bringing you problems, you should be worried. And the way he moved as our commanding officer, whether it was watch standing while driving the ship, or in the performance of your administrative duties, you never wanted to disappoint him. It'd have been like you was letting your dad down, and that's something I've strived for as well as a leader. So that's something I've ingrained in myself and didn't realize until you asked me the question just now.
That's a good thing to talk about, it's a good thing. It's a good aspect to bring to the fore about leadership, because I'm thinking about, I always take concepts of leadership and pull them through to the church and the other way. And even with the martial arts that I do, I take those principles and I bring them into business. And I was thinking to myself, consistency is key. Because I see that for instance, in the church, you have these people that they love the Lord, they love the church, and they want to do everything for God. And for a few months, they are in overdrive. And then all of a sudden, they burn out. And unfortunately, things go wrong for them. And then you have those that are up and down. They're not, they're there. And then the next week, oh my goodness, they love God, and then they don't follow the church anymore. And that's a roller coaster, and nobody likes that. But the power is finding that art of staying consistent.
Absolutely.
And just being the same. I love to work with people, and I've seen that when I've worked with you. I contact you, and you are always friendly. You are always the same. I know I'm going to get a positive response because you are a consistent person. Your personality is solid and it's got a strong foundation. Then sometimes we work with people out there. One day, they are friendly, and the next day, oh my goodness, you haven't even spoken to them and they are just rude. So I also think consistency really goes through every area of our lives, personally, professionally, every area. So yes. That's a wonderful aspect to bring to the fore and for the audience to learn from that your best display of leadership, your best display of you, your best display of your product, your company, even the nonprofit, is to always be consistent. People want to know what to expect from us.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah. Now I'm going to flip the coin, and I want to ask. I want to ask you, what's the worst display of leadership that you've ever seen?
I will say the 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 leader that is inconsistent, has no guidance, just brings nothing. And you're looking for, okay, I know what I need to do, but I know there's something else there. Where am I going? What are we doing? And how do I fit into that? Because I have the people under me that I'm leading in support of you, and I don't know where we're going. And then at some point, it forces you to then do things your way. And then when you do things your way, now that then creates tension that is unhealthy and makes the job accomplishment that much harder. So anytime, not having any direction, no guidance, no intent. Now I've had a sprinkle of that over my career. But again, I've learned from those too. It's like, okay, so, the thing I was looking for in those moments, I didn't get it. So, and when it's my turn, ensure I'm providing that.
Yeah, well, we can just imagine how we felt when we've been in teams and groups and, working with people and we were doing something, but nobody was really sure why and where it was going. That wondering factor, that insecurity that people then get, works against what we are trying to achieve. So I agree. We have to be clear on our goals. We have to know exactly what we're going to do, how we're going to do it, and what role each team member is going to fulfill. Now, you mentioned that you were all the way in the Mediterranean Sea. You came back now from deployment. And I want to ask you, what is next for you? Are you going to be deployed again, or are you going to spend the Christmas with your family, or what is that looking for you?
Yeah, so in the immediate future, it's time for our ship to get some work done. Got to make a lot of repairs, and so we're going to do that for the next several months. And immediately for me, and from the career perspective, is all things go well with my certifications that I have to do over the next several weeks. I fleet up. I do what's called fleet up, and I become the next commanding officer of the same ship. And so we're talking about the dates for that. And I'm following the current commanding officer's lead with support from our destroyer squadron commodore. And when the date is set, we'll continue pushing forward with that. But and that's kind of where I'm at. I've spent time thinking about the long-term goals before I showed up to the ship. But then once I got to the ship, my mindset for the last year has been just be a really good executive officer for the CEO and the crew, and everything else will take care of itself. And so I've just been in that moment.
I think that is a wonderful life philosophy, and congratulations on, going to fleet up now. My goodness, you're moving up, and we are very proud of you. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. We are very excited with you. You said something about being in the moment. There is a show that I watch every single, it's a live every week, and it's called The Power of Pure Presence. One of my very close friends hosts that show every Sunday, and he really teaches us what power we have when we are present in the moment, because there's nothing that we can do in the past. And we can make plans for the future, but sometimes when we look too far ahead, we kind of lose, what the essence of what we are busy with now. And it teaches us that everything that we need is really in this present moment. And if you really, if you are present in the moment, you discover so much about yourself and your life and others. So I agree with you. Enjoy the moment. Enjoy every day as you're going to your stage where you're going to fleet up. And yes, you were correct. Everything is going to fall into place in its own way. And I know you're going to be super blessed because you work very hard. You're a good, authentic leader. You're a family man, and you're just in general a fantastic person. So thank you so much. I can't believe that we are down to our last question. I mean, the time has just flown.
This has been fun, though. I'm enjoying this.
It has been fun. Thank you so much. And I want to ask you before we end, do you have any words of wisdom that you would like to share with the audience?
Yes. I will just say 3 simple words. Just keep going. You have one life to live, and you don't know when it's going to come to an end. And so live it to the fullest, live it the best way you can. Never stop. Just keep going. Beautiful.
Beautiful words from someone who has walked the way of leadership for so many years. We thank you for your service to your country. Thank you for coming back safely to your family. We thank you for imparting your knowledge and your wisdom to us this evening. I know it's going to touch many lives. We really appreciate you, Desmond. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jay, so much. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Lovely, lovely. I'm sure we'll have to do another session in the coming months, so we have to put that in the calendar.
Yes, ma'am.
And to the Meticulous Moments audience, thank you so much for joining us for yet another session. I'm going to make Desmond's contact details available. Network with him, follow him on social media, pray for him, and of course, cheer him on this wonderful journey of leadership. And with that, we'll see you in the next session. Goodbye.